The position at the moment is that you can get someone's data and use it basically for what you want to. I mean, there are certain rules that you still have to follow, but at the moment it's very easy. You just take someone's cell phone number or their email address and just add it in your Excel spreadsheet or wherever you want to keep it. When POPI comes into force, you can't just take someone's data. You need to comply with the law. So POPI will give you certain conditions that you have to meet before you can just take it. So for instance, if you want to get someone's contact details in order to deliver a product to them, that is the reason why the information is given to you. But you can't then use that information, sell it to someone else, and let them then send spam emails using those email details. So basically the point is, at the moment, it's easy to use data. You can have your spreadsheets, you can have your database, but in future you'll have to make sure whether you were allowed to have those contact details in your database. So where the challenge is going to come in is when POPI comes into force and people have all these databases, and then suddenly they realize that they don't really know if they are allowed to have some of those contact details on there. So a lot of organizations, I think, are already cleaning up their houses and deciding, well, let's get permission for the data that we have. Let's find out why we have it. And there are also other obligations, because once POPI is in force, it says that you can only keep contact details for as long as you need it, for instance. So even if you got it for the right purpose now, are you still allowed to contact that person 5 years later for a different reason, for example? It even says that you're supposed to delete it then. So if it's just hanging around, you might have problems. So I think basically it's going to come down to good governance. Basically, you'll have to decide what data do you have, find those spreadsheets, find wherever they are, decide whether you're allowed to have them, or otherwise you might want to start afresh, which some organizations are doing, and they're trying to follow best practice, get proper consent forms in place, telling people that they're sending them direct marketing, find out if they want more, and just ticking the boxes. I think in the end it's about reputation also. If you do the right thing, your customers might feel safer with you, and they might give you their contact details for legitimate reasons. But if companies are going to follow the rules and toe the line in the future, it might become a problem if you don't. Then people might not want to speak to you. The president signed it in November last year, so it's now law. It's not in force yet. 2 weeks ago they brought into place some of the sections, but those sections only allow them to now establish the regulator and to draft regulations. The regulations will tell us how to interpret some of these sections, and will give us detailed instructions on how to do some of the things that the Act requires you to do. The regulator, which is the first thing that has now come into force, will be tasked with enforcing this Act. So the regulator is going to have an office, they're going to appoint people, and their job is then to educate people about POPI, how things must be done, and they will then also be the watchdog. They even have rights to enter into people's premises if they think that something's going wrong, and they can do some raids even. But the point is, the regulator will be there and make sure what people are doing. So if something comes to their attention, if they see something and they see, no, this is not compliant with the Act, then they can do something about it. And people will also be able to file complaints. And it's an interesting way how they've brought it into place. So if you're doing something wrong, they can send you an enforcement notice, which will basically require you to fix your procedure, so you won't go to jail straight away. They'll at least be able to wrap you over the knuckles first, which is the latest trend in legislation. They just don't want to send people to jail and scare them off with fines immediately. So at least there will be a little bit of leeway. But if you don't comply with what they say, then it becomes an offence, and then you might even end up in jail. It all depends on how well the regulator's office is going to be structured, the kind of people that they appoint, the budget that government gives them. From the consumer's side and from the general public side, everyone that has personal information will obviously want the regulator to do its job properly and to have enough people so that they can enforce these things, and if they receive complaints, to be able to open the file and look into the matter and decide what needs to be done. I suppose from people controlling data and processing it, they're probably hoping that it won't be such a big enforcement procedure. But in the end, it really depends on, once the Act comes into force, whether you have a spirit of compliance in your organization or not. So I don't think one should just be threatened by the fact that there's a regulator. If this is the new standard that government is setting for us, then I suppose we need to try and comply at least. And if you don't, if the regulator does its job, you might get into trouble.